Yo, what's up? Name's Jason. What I'm about to tell you happened to me and my boys about 5 years ago. And, honestly, none of us have forgotten it. We were just a group of friends who loved road trips and camping in random weird spots. So, we decided to hit up this small village way out in the countryside. Heard the nature around it was beautiful stuff most people never even get to see. We got there right before sunset. Simple village, old houses, people living the old school way. The locals were super chill, but they gave us one warning. Don't wander off into the farmland at night. This old dude, Collins, pulled us aside and said, "These lands, they got secrets. When the moon is out, you'll hear voices. They'll call your name, and if you answer, you'll follow them. Just like the legends say." We all laughed it off like, "Yeah, okay, ghost stories. Sure, old man." That night, we set up by the river. Fire going, stars shining, moon bright as hell. It was perfect until Ethan, one of my boys, goes, "Yo, you guys hear that?" We all got quiet, and then we heard it. A woman's voice. Soft, sad, but, like, pulling you in. And she was calling his name. Ethan went pale. "She's calling me," he whispered. We tried to chill him out, saying maybe it was locals messing with us. But then the voice got closer, louder, clear as day. "I'm waiting for you." Next thing I know, Ethan stands up like he's hypnotized, his eyes locked on the dark farmland. He starts walking toward it. We're grabbing him, yelling at him, but he pushes us off and keeps saying, "I have to go. She's calling me." Man, a few seconds later, he was gone, just gone into the dark fields. We freaked out, screamed his name, ran through the crops, but nothing, no sign of him. At that point, we remembered the old guy's warning. Bro, my blood ran cold. We bolted back to the village. Mr. Collins didn't even look surprised. He just shook his head and said, "If we don't find him before dawn, you'll never see him again." He rounded up some dudes with flashlights, and we went back in. Bro, I swear, that night was the scariest of my life. Whispers, laughter, something moving in the crops just out of sight. My buddy Mark, biggest coward in the crew, straight up cried, saying, "She took him, she took Ethan." After hours of searching, we finally found him, lying unconscious by an old irrigation ditch. Clothes ripped, body covered in scratches, like he'd been mauled. We dragged him back. An elder from the village said some words over him until he finally woke up. He didn't remember much, just that he heard a voice calling him, followed it, and then everything went black. We packed up and dipped first thing in the morning, swore we'd never go back, and honestly, we never did. To this day, none of us know what happened out there. But I'll tell you this, since that night, I don't laugh at folk stories anymore. Man, my name's Zane. I'm 30 years old, and honestly, I'm just like any other guy my age. All I wanted was a place of my own, a wife, and a quiet, stable life. After years of busting my ass and saving every penny, I finally had enough to start hunting for an apartment. Now, the market's crazy prices through the roof, and anything half decent was either in the middle of nowhere or way out of my budget. Then one day, my buddy hits me up like, "Bro, I found you a steal. Nice place, good neighborhood, and the guy wants to sell it fast." I was hyped. We went to see it that same day. And yeah, the building looked clean. The apartment was spacious, 3 bedrooms, a big living room. But the second I walked in, I don't know, man. The air felt heavy, like you couldn't breathe right. And there was this smell dust, mixed with something else I couldn't figure out. The furniture was all covered in white sheets, like someone had been ready to move in but then just stopped. That's when the doorman told me the story. Turns out, it belonged to a young couple. They had it all set up for their wedding, but a few days before, the bride died in an accident. The groom never came back, just left everything behind. But the price was too good. I told myself I wasn't gonna waste the chance. I signed. First night there. Man, I should have trusted my gut. I woke up in the middle of the night to this faint knocking coming from the closet. I thought maybe I was trippin', but then it happened again, louder. I opened it, and dude, her dresses were still hanging there. White, colorful, smelling like women's perfume. The smell filled the whole room. I froze. After that, it just kept getting worse. Shadows moving across the hall. Footsteps when I was alone. Sometimes I'd wake up and the closet door would be wide open, like someone was standing there, watching me. One time, I found a long strand of hair on my pillow. I'm bald, bro. Then I had this dream. The bride, in her wedding dress, standing in front of the mirror, crying. She looked at me and said, "I don't want to leave. This is my home. This was supposed to be my wedding." I woke up sweating. The bathroom light was on, and the shower was blasting full force. That was it, I was done. Packed my stuff, ran out, and put the place up for sale. Took a loss, didn't care. Life went back to normal after I left, except sometimes, out of nowhere, I'll catch that same perfume smell, and every single time, it sends chills down my spine, like she's still there watching. One evening, I was returning home from work, completely exhausted. I got on a crowded bus, and at some point, I dozed off. The next thing I knew, the driver was shaking me, saying, "Last stop, sir." End of the line. Half asleep, I stepped off the bus and walked home. But when I reached my apartment, I noticed something strange. The phone in my pocket wasn't mine. It was an old Nokia button phone. Weirdly enough, it looked brand new, like it had just come out of the box. Curiosity got the better of him, so he turned it on. Inside, the contacts list was filled with strange symbols and unreadable characters, almost like encrypted codes. The call log was empty. The messages too. He shrugged it off and thought, "Tomorrow I'll figure out who owns this thing." But the next morning, the phone rang. The caller ID said, "Private number." When he picked up, all he could hear were distorted voices, as if someone was speaking underwater. Then came another sound, a deep, metallic dragging noise, like iron scraping across concrete. Horrified, he hung up. Minutes later, a text message arrived. It was written in a bizarre mix of Latin letters and strange symbols. At the bottom of the message, there was an image. The picture showed his elderly neighbor, Mr. Howard, who ran the small grocery store below his apartment. The man was lying on the floor with his eyes wide open in a terrifying stare, like someone had secretly photographed him. David panicked and rushed downstairs to Mr. Howard's shop, only to find a crowd gathered. They told him the old man had died suddenly that very morning of a heart attack. He froze. How could that photo have appeared on the phone before anyone knew about his death? Back in his apartment, David tried to shut the Nokia off, but no matter how many times he pressed the power button, the screen would turn off, then light up again, as if the phone itself resisted. Suddenly, the screen flickered on by itself. A video started playing. The shaky camera showed someone running down a narrow, dark corridor. At the far end, a single light bulb flickered on and off. And then, out of nowhere, a tall, black shadow appeared, standing completely still, waiting. Terrified, David screamed and threw the phone across the room. The next morning, he grabbed it and hurled it into the river. Relief washed over him, as if he had rid himself of a curse. But the nightmare wasn't over. The following day, his personal smartphone buzzed. A message had arrived from an unknown number. It contained only 2 words, "Missed me." Attached was a photo of the same old Nokia, now dripping with moss, as if it had just been pulled from the riverbed. David's whole body went cold. Then he heard it, a faint ringtone, from beneath his bed. He bent down slowly. There it was, the old Nokia, its screen glowing. displaying a picture of himself sleeping in his own bed. He doesn't remember much after that, except screaming and running out of the apartment. And then, the biggest shock of all, David suddenly opened his eyes. He was back on the bus. The driver's voice rang out. "End of the line, sir." Breathing heavily, he thought, "Just a nightmare, thank God." But as he turned to the seat beside him, he froze. There it was, the old Nokia phone, resting neatly on the cushion. That's when he realized the nightmare had only just begun.